In the late 16th century, when the great powers of Europe were racing to carve out empires across the oceans, England dreamed of planting its own permanent settlement in the New World. It was a dream of riches, glory, and power, but instead of success, this first attempt became one of the greatest mysteries in American history: the disappearance of the Roanoke colony. The 1500s were an age of discovery, competition, and conquest. Spain had claimed vast territories in the Americas, from Mexico to Peru, and had grown unimaginably wealthy from gold and silver. Portugal controlled the lucrative spice trade routes. France was exploring Canada. England, however, had fallen behind. Queen Elizabeth I, determined to rival Spain, wanted England to establish a foothold in the Americas. But this was not just about national pride. Colonies promised resources, trade, and a way to weaken Spain's grip on the New World. This dream of empire fell into the hands of an ambitious man named Sir Walter Raleigh. In 1584, Raleigh received a charter from the Queen, giving him permission to explore, colonize, and govern lands in North America. If he succeeded, England would gain a base for trade and piracy against Spain. If he failed, it would cost him dearly. Raleigh's first voyages to North America introduced English sailors to the land of Roanoke Island. Located off the coast of present-day North Carolina, the island was lush, with fertile soil, abundant wildlife, and rich waters for fishing. But this land was not empty. Native tribes such as the CROATOANs and CROATOANs had lived there for centuries, each with their own cultures, alliances, and rivalries. The English, seeing potential, believed Roanoke could be the perfect location for their first settlement. Raleigh never visited himself, but sent trusted captains and settlers to carry out the mission. In 1585, Raleigh organized the first expedition to establish a colony. Around 600 men sailed across the Atlantic, though only about 100 remained on Roanoke to build the first settlement. Among them was the talented artist John White, who carefully sketched the landscapes, plants, animals, and people he encountered. At first, relations with the native tribes were mixed. Some were friendly, intrigued by trade with the English. Others grew hostile as tensions rose over resources and land. The settlers, unprepared for the harsh conditions, soon faced shortages of food. They struggled with disease, isolation, and conflicts with the locals. When English ships returned in 1586 to check on them, the colonists were desperate to leave. Most abandoned the settlement and sailed home with the fleet of Sir Francis Drake. The first attempt had failed, but Raleigh would not give up. 2 years later, in 1587, Raleigh launched another attempt. This time, the colony would not be a military outpost but a true settlement. Over 115 men, women, and children set sail, led once again by John White. John White, torn between duty and family, made a difficult decision. He would return to England to gather supplies and reinforcements, leaving behind his daughter, granddaughter, and the entire colony. In August 1587, White sailed away, promising to return quickly. White had planned to return within a year, but history had other plans. When White arrived in England, his country was in crisis. Spain had launched the Spanish Armada in 1588, threatening to invade England. Every available ship was needed for defense. White pleaded for help, but his return was delayed again and again. Years passed. The colonists waited. White was powerless. Finally, in 1593, years after he had left John, White secured passage back to Roanoke. But what he found upon arrival would haunt history forever. When White stepped onto Roanoke Island, he found the colony deserted. Houses had been dismantled. Fortifications were gone. There were no signs of struggle, no bodies, no graves, no evidence of a battle. The only clue was carved into a wooden post. The word CROATOAN. Another carving, crow, was found on a nearby tree. CROATOAN was the name of a nearby island, now Hatteras Island, and the tribe that lived there. White believed the settlers might have moved there, possibly seeking refuge with the CROATOAN people, but storms and bad weather prevented him from searching further. White was forced to return to England, never seeing his family again. When John White returned to Roanoke in 1590, he found only silence. No settlers, no signs of life, only the mysterious carving CROATOAN. For centuries, historians, archaeologists, and storytellers have asked the same question: what happened to the lost colony of Roanoke? One of the earliest explanations was that the colonists had been killed by nearby Native American tribes. Tensions between settlers and local peoples had already been rising since the first colony in 1585. The Second tribe, in particular, had clashed with the English. It was possible that after John White left, hostility grew and turned violent. But this theory has weaknesses. White found no signs of struggle, no burnt remains, no destroyed houses, no bodies. Everything had been dismantled in an orderly way. If there had been an attack, why would the colonists leave a carved message? This leads many to doubt that massacre was the true fate. Another theory, perhaps the most likely, is that the settlers sought refuge with the CROATOAN tribe, who lived on nearby Hatteras Island. The carving CROATOAN may have been a deliberate clue left for White, a message saying, "We moved here." The CROATOANs were known to have more peaceful relations with the English. Joining them would have offered safety, food, and community. In fact, years later, English colonists reported stories of native tribes with lighter skin, gray eyes, and knowledge of European customs. Some believed these were the descendants of Roanoke settlers, who had merged with the CROATOANs. Still, without concrete proof, this theory remains speculation. Life on Roanoke Island was hard. Supplies were running low even before White left for England. Crops failed, storms battered the coast, and food was scarce. Some historians argue that the settlers may have abandoned Roanoke simply in search of survival. Perhaps they split into smaller groups, moving inland to find fertile land or friendly tribes. The challenge is that no records, graves, or clear trails were ever discovered. It is possible that small groups perished in the wilderness, their traces lost to time. At the time, Spain and England were bitter enemies. Spanish colonies stretched through Florida and the Caribbean, and Spanish ships patrolled the Atlantic. Some suggest the Spanish discovered and destroyed the Roanoke settlement to eliminate an English foothold in the Americas. But again, there is no evidence of a violent raid. No Spanish records mention such an attack, and White's discovery of the carvings suggests the colonists had time to leave their message, something unlikely if they were slaughtered suddenly. Another possibility is that natural forces doomed the colony. The Outer Banks of North Carolina are vulnerable to hurricanes and violent storms. Some archaeologists believe a massive storm could have damaged crops, destroyed shelters, and forced survivors to flee inland. Others point to drought. Tree ring analysis shows that the Roanoke region experienced one of the worst droughts in centuries. During the exact years the colony struggled without water or food, the settlers may have been forced to abandon their home. Perhaps the truth is not one theory, but several combined. Some settlers may have died of disease or starvation. Others may have joined friendly tribes, like the CROATOANs. Some may have tried to journey inland but perished along the way. The mystery endures because there was no single answer, no final battle, no single event, but rather the slow unraveling of a colony abandoned in the wilderness. The disappearance of Roanoke's settlers was never solved, but as years turned into centuries, the mystery began to grow larger than life. What had started as a question of survival soon transformed into stories of curses, ghostly warnings, and desperate searches for the truth. Among the vanished colonists was Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the New World. Her story became legendary. According to one popular tale, Virginia grew up among the Croatoan people after the colonists assimilated, but in later folklore, a darker twist emerged. Virginia was transformed into a white doe. Cursed to wander the forests of North Carolina, hunters claimed to see the ghostly deer, whose eyes seemed almost human. Some said shooting the doe would break the curse. Others believed harming her would bring disaster. Though just a legend, Virginia Dare became a symbol of lost innocence, a child caught forever between two worlds. The word carved into the post CROATOAN took on a sinister reputation. Over time, stories spread that this word was not just a clue, but a curse. It appeared mysteriously in other tales of disappearance. In 1867, the famous writer Edgar Allan Poe was said to have whispered CROATOAN on his deathbed. In 1888, the stagecoach robber Black Bart reportedly carved the word into a prison wall before vanishing forever. In 1937, the pilot Amelia Earhart's journal was rumored to have the word written inside before her disappearance. Though many of these claims are unproven, the legend grew. CROATOAN was not just a word, it was a mark of vanishing, a whisper of fate. For generations, explorers, settlers, and native tribes told stories of white-skinned people living far inland. Some tribes described neighbors who spoke broken English, wore European-style clothing, and practiced farming techniques that matched the Roanoke settlers. In the early 1600s, the English colony at Jamestown heard rumors that survivors of Roanoke were still alive, scattered among tribes. Some even claimed that children with gray eyes, a rare trait, were descendants of the lost colonists, but no solid proof ever surfaced. Each rumor faded into the mists of history. For centuries, historians and treasure hunters tried to uncover the truth. Excavations on Roanoke and Hatteras Islands uncovered tools, pottery, and weapons. Some matched English design, others Native American. Were these signs of assimilation or simply trade? In the 20th century, a series of carved stones were discovered in North Carolina, supposedly written by Eleanor Dare, Virginia's mother. The stones told a tragic story of death, struggle, and loss. At first, they caused a sensation, but later, most were exposed as forgeries. Even so, the legend of Roanoke continued to inspire books, movies, and TV shows. The mystery was too powerful to die. For centuries, the lost colony of Roanoke remained a mystery wrapped in folklore. But in recent decades, archaeologists, historians, and scientists have returned to the Outer Banks, determined to separate fact from legend. Could modern science finally reveal what happened to the 115 lost settlers? Excavations on Hatteras Island, home of the CROATOAN tribe, have uncovered artifacts that appear unmistakably English. Archaeologists found tools, weapon parts, and personal items dating back to the late 1500s. Some were clearly European in style, while others showed signs of being adapted and reused by native peoples. This evidence suggests at least some of the Roanoke settlers may have joined the CROATOANs, living and working alongside them. It doesn't prove the entire colony moved there, but it's one of the strongest clues yet. In the 1930s, a farmer in North Carolina claimed to have discovered a stone inscribed with words from Eleanor Dare, John White's daughter. The inscription told of hardships, deaths, and battles with natives. Over the next few years, dozens more Dare stones surfaced, all supposedly chronicling the tragic fate of the colonists. At first, historians were electrified, but soon, most experts declared the stones to be fakes, created by modern hands to profit off the legend. Still, debate lingers. Was at least the first stone genuine, or was it all an elaborate hoax? In 1998, scientists studying tree rings in the region uncovered evidence of a massive drought between 1587 and 1589, the very years the colony was struggling. The drought would have devastated crops, driven away game, and poisoned drinking water with salt. Survival would have been nearly impossible. This discovery added weight to the theory that starvation and desperation forced the settlers to abandon Roanoke, seeking help from tribes or moving inland. In the 21st century, researchers began an ambitious project, using DNA testing to search for descendants of the Roanoke colonists. By comparing genetic material from local Native American tribes and families with deep roots in North Carolina, scientists hoped to trace evidence of English bloodlines. So far, the results are inconclusive. Some findings hint at European ancestry within certain tribes, but nothing definitive enough to close the case. Still, the search continues and each test brings us closer to the truth. The story of the lost colony of Roanoke has haunted the world for more than 4 centuries. It is more than a tale of vanished settlers. It is a mirror, reflecting humanity's hopes, fears, and the struggle to survive in the unknown. Though the Roanoke colony failed, it paved the way for future English settlements. Just 20 years later, Jamestown was founded in Virginia. The lessons of Roanoke about supplies, alliances, and survival shaped how later colonists approached the New World. In this way, the lost colony was not the end of a dream but the beginning of one. Roanoke's disappearance gave birth to myths and stories that still echo today. Virginia Dare became a ghostly symbol of innocence lost. The word CROATOAN grew into a legend of vanishings and curses. Books, plays, and films have carried the mystery into popular culture from 19th century folklore to modern shows like American Horror Story. Each retelling twists the story into something new, proof of how deeply it grips the imagination. Perhaps Roanoke captivates us because it reminds us of the fragility of human ambition. These settlers crossed an ocean, dreaming of a better life, only to be swallowed by forces beyond their control: hunger, storms, or the clash of cultures. And yet, their story endures, because within mystery, we find meaning. Within disappearance, we see ourselves always searching, always wondering. Final words. More than 400 years later, the fate of the Roanoke colonists remains unsolved. Did they die? Did they adapt? Or did they live on through the generations, hidden in plain sight? The answer may never be known, but perhaps that is why the mystery continues to live, because some stories are not meant to end, and that the story of the vanishing of the Roanoke colony. Thanks for watching till end. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel for more interesting story. Hit that notification bell to stay updated on new content, and I will catch you in the next one.